Welcome to First in Fantasy. Today I'm going to give you my top 5 draft day do's. These are the 5 things you need to be doing during your draft. This is how you are going to get off on the right foot and dominate your league.
That's me taking the bull by the horns.
If you didn't watch yesterday's video, we did our 5 draft day don'ts, which I would argue are as equally as important as the 5 do's. So make sure if you haven't, go watch that video. If you've already watched this and you made it here, hello again. And before I jump into it, let me just say this. Of all the videos I make, this is one I would love your participation on the most. If you wouldn't mind leaving a comment, what are some draft day do's and don'ts that you think about every season? I have these are the ones I've come up with over about 15 years, but I meet people all the time and they have really unique ones. And I'm like, I never thought about that. So if you have 1 or 2 things that you feel like separates you from your league mates, I would love if you would drop that as a comment and we can all get better together. And lastly, these are my 5 tips that I do every season, but I've also tailored it a little specifically for 2026. And that leads me into tip number 1, and that is going to be draft running back early, especially this year. Any given season, there's going to be more depth at a position. For instance, I think there's a ton of depth at quarterback this year. I think there's a ton of depth at tight end. Wide receiver, I would say, is average, and running back is very thin. I would say on average for running back any given year, like there's around 25 good ones you can get. I would say anything after 20 this year is really sparse. There are a lot of question marks, a lot of what feels like really bad teams this year that like with such low win totals that it feels like a lot of running backs are unviable. That means this year I've been more than any other year in recent memory going running back, or running back, wide receiver, running back. Like I am trying to hit them early because they are going so fast. So this means what should you not do here? And I talked about this in the video yesterday, but you shouldn't use a high draft pick on a tight end. You shouldn't use a high draft pick on a quarterback because there are dime a dozen this year. Hammer running back hard because you do not want like your first or second running back to end up being like Travion Henderson, a dude who's already a little banged up and splitting the backfield work in New England. Before I forget, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, and if you're really enjoying the content, to subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, tip number 2, and that is to pick players that are going to be on competitive teams by the end of the year. These are teams that are going to be competing for playoff spots. Your Seahawks, your Packers, your Dolphins, your Broncos. I know you're like, did you say Dolphins? Yeah, I'm a Dolphins fan, so I slip it in when I can.
Don't like that.
And I'll tell you why I do this, is those teams that are fighting for those spots, they are playing their studs, their starters late. In one league last season, I ended up trading for Derrick Henry before the trade deadline because I was looking at that playoff schedule and I was like, they are going to be relying on him in those big games that are going to make or break whether or not they make the playoffs. Before then, Derrick Henry's road had been kind of up and down, but just what I thought was going to happen came true. And in the fantasy football championship, he delivered with like 4 touchdowns and like 150 yards. I don't know. He was like prime Derrick Henry. I'm probably not drafting Breece Hall, Devon Achane, Cam Skattebo, Tony Pollard. So just guys like that, right? You want organizations who are going to be starting their stars when they need them most, not organizations when the season's out of reach and out of touch where they're just looking to try out new guys so they have an idea of what to do with them in the offseason. Tip number 3, and this is also as equally important as the last one, and I would say it sort of conjoins with them. So this is weeks 15, 16, and 17 we're looking at. Look at a player's playoff schedule before you draft them. I typically do this if I'm debating between a few players and looking for a tiebreaker. This is usually the ultimate tiebreaker for me. I can't tell you how many times I've won with rosters that are worse in the finals than the team I'm playing. And that is because I will take the good player that has a really soft matchup versus a player that might look like a stud, but they're playing the 3 toughest defenses in the playoffs. And I know some of you will say, oh, well, you need to get to the playoffs to even be able to use this tip. Listen, if you're following this channel, if you're following these tips, if you're like me, you don't miss the playoffs, okay? That is the bare minimum. We never, ever miss the playoffs. So that's how confident we are, and we are planning for the future, okay? And that future is the fantasy football playoffs, and that's when you win leagues, and it's based on thinking this far ahead. I will even go as far as to say this. I would rather take a player who has a really difficult regular season schedule and a really easy playoff schedule than a player who has a cakewalk of a schedule through the regular season, but then has a really hard playoff schedule.
It's science.
Number 4, and I did mention this in the video yesterday, it was kind of a tease to get to this video, and you could look at this as a do or a don't, and that is to fill your starting skill positions before anyone hits your bench. I do not want to see you taking any player to your bench until all of your wide receiver, running back, and flex position spots are filled. This is an absolute team killer. I see people do it every season. They're like, I'm going to go get my depth at quarterback here, or I'm going to go get my depth at tight end, or I'm going to get even my handcuff running back here. No, we are not taking players that in theory are going to provide us zero value from the start of the season. I cannot harp on this point enough because it's the mistake I see most people make. People will send me their drafts all the time, be like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And I'm like, I'm kind of confused. I'm like, why do you have a giant hole here? Well, I went and got my 2 running back handcuffs, or, oh, I really like this guy and I know I'm not going to start him right now, but like, I think he could win the position. Like, cool. You just lost, like you're going to start the season 2-4.
Oh, that's terrible.
Because you're going to have a lower average than everybody else in your league because you're not drafting for your starting points. You're just hoping something maybe works out in the future. And the way I see it too, especially people who draft handcuffs above starters, is I'm like, okay, you have that insurance policy, and don't get me wrong, you need to go get your handcuffs. But if your starter goes down and the handcuff goes in, you still have a hole at the position that you didn't draft a starter at. You guys see what I'm saying? Like, you're always going to be behind. So fill your starting skill spots before anyone goes to your bench. And if you see a league mate of yours screw this up, mock them. If you've gotten any entertainment or value out of this video thus far, a like and a subscription would mean the world to me. Thanks so much. Okay, on to the next tip. Tip number 5, and I do have a bonus tip after this one, so stick around. And I think this is more of a game theory thing. I am a massive game theory fan. If you sub to this channel, we will talk about game theory a lot when it comes to being intra-season and trades and who we're picking up, and game theory is like the most fun thing in the world to me. And this one is simple. Be adaptable during your draft. Too many people go into each draft with a fixed mindset, right? We discussed earlier, we need to draft running backs more than anything at the start of this season's drafts. However, if it reaches the point where there's such a severe run on those running backs that we've gone off the cliff, it wouldn't be smart to take running backs anymore. We need to be fluid. We want to be taking the best player off the board that's going to provide the most points and constantly be fluctuating. Don't go into a draft. And I know it sounds like I'm saying don't go into a draft saying I'm running 0 RB and nothing's going to change that. Everyone knows when your home league drafts, whether you've done 1 mock draft, 0, 20, everything will change, right? Because it never goes the way you plan. So you need to have an adaptable mindset and prepare yourself for chaos. Have all these decisions already made ahead of time as far as like which players you're going to pick in certain situations. So adapt. That is how we're going to win the draft. And that's how we're going to win the rest of this season. My last bonus tip, this is sort of a do and a don't, is you've heard it everywhere. Don't drink and draft. I'll tell you a funny little story. Last season and the season before, I did a little drinking. I did a little drafting. And back-to-back seasons, I got put on auto draft and auto drafted 1 or 2 players. I was so excited. I was drafting all these players. I was making fun of my league mates for some of the duds they were taking. And lo and behold, I ended up auto drafting around like the turn in like round 7, 8. So bad. You're probably like, I can't follow this guy. You know what? That's life. That's fantasy football, having a good time. So you know what? I'm not going to be here and say, don't drink and draft because it's fantasy football. We should have fun. I'm not condoning drinking, but I am saying if you're going to do it, don't go too heavy. Go like 2 drinks max throughout the draft, maybe 1 to kick you off, and then maybe wait until like the 6th round. My problem is I go from like round 1 to 3, and then I'm like, I get a little too excited, a little too frisky.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, so just saying, pace yourself. That's all I'm saying. We don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot over a Juicy Haze IPA from New Belgium. Thank you to New Belgium for not sponsoring this video. Those are my 5 do's for the draft. If you enjoyed any part of this video, please leave a like and comment. And if you have time to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. We're trying to hit triple digits by the time the season starts, and we're very close. If you sub, drop a comment, let us know you sub. It means a lot to me and to the channel. Thanks so much.